Hey guys, thanks again for joining us for another week of OK Now John. We're in our final week of our series, Conquering the Giants. If you remember week 1, we talked about David and Goliath conquering the giant of opposition. If you remember week 2, we talked about conquering the giant of fear and doubt when Moses parted the Red Sea. Last week, we talked about conquering the giant of opposition and setback, how we talked about how life often feels like it's a shipwreck. And this week, we're going to be conquering our final giant, the giant of death. And I think it's appropriate that if we're going to conquer the giant of death, we need to talk about Jesus and how he died and rose from the dead. So if you remember our series verse, Romans chapter 8, verse 37, when Paul writes, "In all things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." And so with that in mind, let's go ahead and go to our story. Our story is found in Matthew chapter 27, verses 38 through 46. Verse 38. 2 rebels were crucified with Jesus, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by Jesus insulted him. They shook their heads, saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross and then we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, the rebels who were crucified with Jesus also heaped insults on him. Death is the greatest giant that we will face in our lives. Death is that giant that seems to just be looming over you, looking down at you, inching closer and closer and closer until one day you're staring face to face with the giant of death. Death is the greatest giant that we'll face, and it's the scariest giant we will face. With death, it just seems so inevitable and unstoppable. So inevitable and unstoppable. Jesus was at his lowest point in his life. He was humiliated. He was beaten, and he was dying. In this darkness, this whole terrible ordeal that's going on with Jesus is represented by verse 45. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the land. And then at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Death is a giant that we're all going to have to face. It's a giant that seems inevitable and unstoppable. But it is a giant that only one can conquer. Through faith and trust in Christ, we conquer the giants of opposition. Through faith and trust in Jesus, we conquer the giants of fear and doubt. Through faith and trust in Jesus, we conquer the giants of circumstance and setback. And through faith and trust in Jesus, we conquer the giant of death. John chapter 19 references Jesus saying, "It is finished." It is finished. The most powerful words in the entire Bible. Death, the unstoppable giant, finished. It is finished. Death is finished. Through Christ, you too can conquer death. Put your faith in Christ. Put your trust in Christ. Tell people about Jesus. Because death is a giant that we all have to face. But only one can take it down.